Now, in last week's video, we spoke about onboarding a client. Remember, it is going to be just one client. We're going to go through from the leads, from how they got there, until invoicing to the end of the month. And we already went over the first three parts, which was the pre-provider consultation, the provider consultation, and the hiring and onboarding process. Today we're going to go over the setup and training, the beginning work, and the normal routine. My name is Tamika. I'm a certified professional biller, and I help women start their medical billing business confidently, even while they're working full-time. So the fourth part is the setup and training. And this is where you want access to stuff. So if you didn't get access to the practice management system in the last step, then you will get access to the practice management system, and you also get access to any of the, insurance payers, websites and stuff like that. So for example, Cigna has a website. Your provider should have signed up for Cigna's website, and so then they have to give you access to their information on Cigna's website. Now, I know that many people would just use the provider's login information. I do not do that. I have set up my own insurance logins, and so I log in using my own username and password, and then I request that the provider gives me access to certain things. And I would recommend that you do that as well, because you don't want to have access to the provider's information. Now, I have heard some horror stories about that, because a lot of times the providers don't set up their own accounts. It's someone else setting it up. And then when that person leaves or something happens, they end on bad terms, then the provider cannot even get in their own account. And that is crazy. The provider should have access to their own account all the time. I am just asking for permission to see that information, use that information. So if for any reason we part ways, then they can just stop me from seeing their information, but they still have access to their information. So I would recommend you have your own account and the provider has their own account. Now at this time, you also might be learning a new system. So for me, I work in the provider system, which means that if it's a system that I don't already know, then I have to learn that system. I decided to do it that way because I feel like I am pretty good with computers. I don't have a problem learning new systems. And so I decided to do that way. I also feel like, again, I don't want to be responsible for having the provider's information in my system and they don't have access to their own information. It's their patients, it's their information, and I don't want to keep it. So I usually work in the provider system. And I did a video talking about deciding whether or not you want to use the practice management system of the provider, or if you want to have one for yourself and they use yours. So watch that video after you watch this one. But for me, I always use the provider system. I have no problem in doing that. And I might start niching down where I'm only using certain systems that I actually know. I've worked in several systems. I worked in Athena, Lytech, Medisoft, Tebra, just a lot of different ones. And so therapy notes, like I've worked in a lot of different systems and I like to learn new systems. So it's not a problem to me. But remember, if you're not really good with that, you can actually have your own system, but that has its own cons and stuff in itself. So this is what I do. So as I'm learning the system, especially if it's a new one, if it's one that I've already worked in, I already know, I don't really need to be trained. I just kind of need to be trained as to how the provider is using it. So even though, let's say I use Tebra and I've used Tebra for another provider and I get with a provider who uses Tebra now, they may do stuff completely different. They might not post payments the same way or a certain way. This provider might do it that way, that one might do it the next way. And it might be that one of the providers are doing it wrong, but I have to actually see what they're doing, what their process is, all of that stuff in order to see whether it's wrong, right, or indifferent. So this is still a training process for me. I might know the system and where to go, but I also have to see how the provider is using it. If I don't know the system, then again, I'm going to have to see how the provider is using the system. There might be someone there who can actually kind of give me a quick, training course, nothing too long, just let me know this is here, that's there, this is where you do that, this is where you do that. If there's somebody who has already been doing, let's say, the billing part of it, then they can show me that. Sometimes the provider don't know how to do anything. And let's say they are just starting out, they never did anything. So then I have to actually learn how to do it myself to be able to teach them how to do it. And a lot of the practice management systems have like online trainings, they have live trainings, they have, documents and information within the system. And so I use those often. don't have a problem calling them. I don't have a problem going through the trainings, going through the videos. So I do that and I don't mind at all. Now, also to remember is that during this time, you will probably be putting in more hours. So probably for sure you're going to be putting in more hours because now you might have just quoted them for 15 hours a month or 20, 30 hours a month. But because you have to train and learn the system, you might be having 10, 5, 20 more hours more than what you expected. Usually during the first month or two, I really don't add those hours in. Yes, I charge them for 15 hours, but it was for actually doing the billing. When I'm training, trying to learn how to do stuff, trying to figure out stuff, I'm not counting that in those hours. When I first started using Tebra, I had to really learn Tebra. I had to figure out how to do this, call the representatives. I had to learn what to do. And that took hours of learning to do. But I couldn't put that on the provider because I was just learning the system. So know that at the beginning, you will be putting in more hours. But of course, when you learn the system, then you can go back to the actual hours that you think that you were going to use for that provider. So your beginning work is when you will start to get your routines together, your communication between you and the provider, how you're going to do stuff, how often you're going to do stuff. All of that is going to be during this beginning work. So, of course, you want to get the beginning work started as fast as you can, but sometimes you can't just jump into doing the billing or whatever it is that you have signed up to do because there are other things that need to be done. But as soon as you can get that done, you want to start getting it done and getting your routines going, getting your communication with the provider, how that's going to go. There's going to be like I said, a learning curve or something with all of this because not every provider works the same and things are going to be different. You're going to have to try and figure out how you're going to deal with one, how you're going to deal with the other. So know that there will be some times or some points where you're just going to have like a beginning work session and you're going to have to try and figure that all out. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you download my 12-step guide that will help you start your medical billing business with confidence. The link is in the description box and it will give you everything that you need to know to start your medical billing business. So after you've started the beginning works of this client and you've kind of figured out what you want it to do, what you don't want to do, then you will go into kind of like your normal routine. I'm going to go through a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual routine that you can have for a provider that you've signed up for, let's say the complete revenue cycle, meaning from claim submission to patient statements. Weekly depends on the services that you are doing and how many patients the provider has. So let's say, for example, this provider has 50 claims that goes out every single week. Unless you guys have decided on something else, you can decide to do claim submission once a week. So let's say at the end of each week on a Friday, you send out all the claims. Now for me, I like to send out claims in batches. I don't like to send out claims one by one. When you send them out one by one, they usually come back for payment one by one, which gives you a lot more payment posting to do. So I usually try to send it out in batches. So I would either do this provider's claims twice a week or once at the end of the week. This depends on the provider as well because they might be like, are you going to send it out every day? Are you going? And you need to know what your routine is, if you will or if you won't. Depending on the specialty that you bill for as well, this probably will determine how often you send out a claim. So if a provider is only seeing one patient this day and then they see 3 patients another day, and again, I don't like to send out claims just one by one. I prefer to do them in batches. So the furthest I would go out with sending claims is every week, meaning that that would be my cutoff point. So regardless of if they have one claim or if they maybe have 50 claims, I would send it out once a week if that's okay with the provider. I wouldn't go past that. I wouldn't wait for the provider to get 20 claims and then let's say that's the end of the month when they actually get 20 claims. I wouldn't do that. My cutoff time is once a week. Then you would have claim rejections. And of course, when you send out a claim, you need to make sure that the claim doesn't get rejected and you want to be able to deal with those. So that kind of goes with how often you send out claims. Because if you send out claims once a week, then most likely, let's say you send it out on a Friday, then your claims rejection report will come in on the Monday. And so you'll work your claims rejection. So that might also be once a week. If you send out claims twice a week, then you probably would do claims rejections twice a week. So see how that goes. Again, this all depends on you and your provider and what you guys want to do. Then you have your payment posting. Payment posting, you get back some money hopefully, and you work that. So again, all of these things for me at least depend on the frequency of your claims. If you're sending out claims more often, it's going to mean that you're going to get payments more often. And so this is going to go, so if I only send out claims once a week, then I'm most likely will only post payments once a week, unless it gets too overwhelming where I have to do it twice a week. Also, if you have claim denials, when you get an ERA back and there's a denial on there, or something's not paid in full and you have to try and figure that out, then you want to make sure that you work those as well. Now, as far as claims, follow-ups, and denials and stuff like that, I don't really do them on a specific day. I kind of do them as they come, because it's not always like, oh well, you're gonna have this claim denial every week, or you're gonna have something specifically all the time. So I kind of do it as it comes. So I might do claim follow-up, claim denials all throughout the week. Sometimes a payer might not be open at this time, and this is the only time I have to call them. So I'm not going to wait till the 1 day or the 2 days that I have set for follow-up. I will follow up when I need to follow up. So I have a book that I write in all my denials and things that I need to follow up on, to just make sure that I'm staying up on all of these things. A lot of times denials may take more than just one step. Like, you might not just be able to do this one thing and it gets fixed. So you might have to continue to follow up and follow up and follow up on this denial. So that's basically like a weekly routine. Again, it all depends on what you have to do for your billing services that you have signed up for. Then there are the monthly duties. And the monthly duties for me include the reports. Reports that I actually send to the providers with, how much revenue they made, how much claims they had, how much patients they saw. It depends on what the provider wants, but there are some that you just send. That's just a normal kind of thing, unless they tell you they don't want those. But I would send, like a revenue report. If they wanted like a denial report, all of those things I would send at the end of the month. I would also do a agent report, an agent by patient, and an agent by insurance. So the agent by the insurance, I'll go through those. If I need to call the insurance, follow up, make changes, I'll do that then. And as far as with patients, I will go through the agent for the patients, and then I would send out patient statements. Some providers I send patient statements for, some of them I don't. So if I don't need to send out patient statements, then I would not do the patient agent reports, because that obviously would be somebody else's job to do. And last, monthly is when I send out the invoices. The invoices for the clients that I send them out monthly. I have them on an automation system in the bookkeeping system that I use, which I didn't mention before, but the bookkeeping system that I use is Zoho. I really like it. I've always used QuickBooks, but QuickBooks was getting a little expensive for me. Also, QuickBooks doesn't work well or in certain things in the Virgin Islands, so I had to find something else, and Zoho was what I've gone with, and from now I actually really like it. Then quarterly I would do my provider meetings. Now actually I can do the provider meetings quarterly or monthly. It depends on the provider. Right now I have one provider who I meet with monthly and another provider that I meet with quarterly. The one that I meet with quarterly, we agreed on that, but we actually communicate so much throughout the month that we probably don't need that additional meeting. The provider that I meet with monthly, throughout the month, we kind of really don't have that much communication. So I just want to make sure that he knows that I'm here, that he knows he can ask me any questions. And for him, it's better that he meets with me at the end of the month. He asks all of his questions. He's not really that savvy or good or even really like to be on the email. So I just make sure that I meet with him monthly so that he can get his questions out, and I can make sure everything is good with that. So you can either do it monthly, quarterly, every other month. Again, it's up to you. Every 6 months, it's really up to you. But I made a determination for that provider to do it monthly, and for my other provider to do it quarterly. And last but not least is yearly. And yearly is basically, again, like reports. So I would send the same reports that I have sent, throughout the month, but I would kind of compare them. So I would kind of compare them month to the month of the previous year, just so that they can see, well, if they've grown, if they've got smaller, if something happened, they lost a provider, so now things are just give them some idea in numbers how their practice is looking. So I kind of would do like a comparison year to year. That's what it's called, a comparison year to year, so that they could kind of know what their numbers are before. A lot of times we give the providers so much reports that they probably don't even look at it. So I try to make it where it is understandable, where they can see the numbers straight up and forward, so that they don't have to be kind of looking through it trying to figure out what's going on. I've also asked my providers that if it's unclear and that they don't understand, to let me know, and I can see if I can make it better for them, because I don't want to just be handing them all of these numbers, and they don't understand anything about it. So I hope that this was helpful. Make sure you watch part 1 that talks about the other section. This was the last 3 sections. And when you put them all together, you will learn how to onboard a client from pre-provider consultation to just doing your normal medical billing duties. So I'll see you in my next one.